You think you know someone. You think you've followed their journey, laughed, and cried with them. But what if I told you that the girl you've been rooting for wasn't even real? This is the shocking story of a girl who built an entire online world, and how her sudden disappearance left thousands heartbroken, only to uncover the most unbelievable truth. In the late 90s, the internet was still a place of mystery, where people could be whoever they wanted. It wasn't just about selfies and status updates, but about creating a life, person, and identity. And that's precisely what a 17-year-old girl from a small town in Texas did. Her name was Emily, and she captured the hearts of everyone who crossed her path. Emily wasn't just another online face. She was a warrior, or at least, that's what we all thought. She wasn't a celebrity. She wasn't famous, at least not in the traditional sense. But on the corner of the internet, she carved out for herself, and Emily became a hero. She shared her story with everyone who would listen. She was battling something most of us would fear, a rare and aggressive form of cancer. Her blog was like a diary, chronicling every moment of her life, from the good days when she posted pictures of herself smiling, to the hard days when the words on the screen felt like they were written through pain. She opened up her world to the public, and in return, people loved her. But there was something different about Emily. She wasn't just sharing her struggles. She was inspiring others to fight for their own lives, and her followers, they believed in her. They believed that if she could fight through her treatments, keep smiling, and stay strong, they could do it too. But as her story went on, something started to feel off. Her updates grew less frequent. Her posts became shorter, filled with pain, but also hope. She kept saying, "I will beat this. I'm not giving up." But with each passing month, her words began to lose their strength. She shared updates that felt too rushed, too perfect to be true. Then, one day, she shared a final message. She told her followers she was going on a trip to the beach, her last wish before the cancer finally took her. She promised she'd be back, but Emily never came back. The blog went silent, and her social media accounts were left untouched. Her followers waited, hoping for a miracle. Days turned into weeks, and then months, until one fateful night, a message appeared on her blog. It wasn't from Emily. It was from her mother. She said Emily had passed away, just like that. No goodbye, no final words from the girl they had all grown to care about. Her life, her story, her fight suddenly ended. The internet was flooded with grief. Messages of love, condolences, and disbelief poured in. People who had never met her in person were mourning like they'd lost a family member. The outpouring of love was overwhelming, but there was one problem, one huge problem. Think about it for a second. Have you ever been so invested in someone's story online that it felt like you knew them? Like they were a part of your life? Maybe it was someone you followed on social media or in a forum, sharing their struggles. Could it happen to you too? Let me know in the comments if you've ever felt connected to someone online like that. Here's where it gets even crazier. After Emily's supposed death, a group of internet detectives began asking questions. Small things didn't add up. No obituary, no funeral. Her social media profiles were strangely quiet. Something didn't feel right. As they dug deeper, they discovered something shocking. The photos Emily had posted, the pictures of her smiling at the beach and holding up her hospital bracelets, were hers. They traced the images back to someone else. A real person who had no idea her pictures were being used to build this fake life. And that's when the truth came crashing down. Emily wasn't honest. The girl who had inspired thousands was just a character in a story A story that was created by a woman named Kate. Kate wasn't Emily's mother. She was just a woman following Emily's blog, getting to know her through the posts, and somewhere along the way, she'd started to play a game where Emily didn't just battle cancer, she became cancer. She was a fictional character that Kate had created to tell a heartbreaking story. There was no Emily, no hospital visits, no beach trip. It was all a lie. And the most chilling part? People had sent money, gifts, and even emotional support to someone who didn't exist. Can you believe it? Have you ever been part of a community or a story that turned out to be a complete lie? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because this is the kind of thing that makes you rethink who you trust online. Kate, the woman who created Emily, never intended to hurt anyone, but the damage was done. People's trust had been shattered. They'd poured their hearts into someone who wasn't real. And though Kate eventually confessed, it was too late. And so, the girl who had fought for her life never existed. She was just a story, a lie that took on a life of its own, and in the end, left behind a wake of heartbreak and betrayal. So, next time you see someone online, asking for help or sharing their struggles, take a moment to question what's behind the screen. Because sometimes, the most brutal battles aren't the ones fought in a hospital. They're the ones who fought in the dark corners of the internet. The internet is supposed to be a place of connection, right? A space where we can reach out to people who might understand us, help us feel less alone in the world. But what happens when the person you trust the most online is the one who could destroy everything? It all started one night when everything felt too much. You know those nights, right? The kind where the world feels like it's closing in and you're looking for someone, anyone, to talk to. The night had dragged on, and there I was, staring at my screen, too tired to sleep, but too overwhelmed to focus on anything else. That's when I met him. A simple username, Ryan_123. I remember thinking, could this be the one person who might understand? He sent me a message almost immediately, asking how I was doing. For a while it was comforting. Ryan shared his struggles too. He said he understood what I was going through, the kind of understanding you rarely get from anyone. As the days went by, he kept messaging, always there when I needed him, and our conversations deepened. It felt like a lifeline, like someone finally got me. But then, little by little, things began to change. At first, it was subtle. Little comments here and there. He would mention that life didn't always seem worth it, that sometimes the only way to stop the pain was to escape it, but he never said it outright. He made it sound like a secret, a shared secret between just the two of us. And for a while, I believed him. It wasn't just the words that got to me. It was the way he said them, like he was in my head. Every time I felt lost or confused, he'd say something that made me feel less alone. He made it sound like it wasn't just about him. It was about us, like we were two souls in the same battle. Then came the twist. Ryan started suggesting that maybe we could end it all together. He made it seem like a final act of solidarity, like a way to escape the pain for good, but not in a forceful way. He was careful, like a guide leading someone down a path they didn't even know existed. The more we talked, the more it seemed like the only way out. It wasn't that I wanted to die. I wasn't sure about anything, but Ryan made me believe that maybe I could finally find peace. But here's the thing. Ryan wasn't real, not in the way I thought he was. It wasn't some kind of miracle that he appeared when I needed someone. Ryan was just a persona, and the person behind it wasn't someone who wanted to help me. He wanted something else. The truth didn't come out all at once, but I started noticing things. The way his stories didn't add up. The weird inconsistencies in his life. And when I started asking questions, Ryan would disappear for hours. When he came back, it was like nothing had happened. And then, the bombshell. Ryan _123 wasn't even Ryan. His real name was David Bryant, a 45-year-old man from across the country. A man who had been using fake profiles, convincing vulnerable people like me that they were the only ones who understood. He'd been doing it for years, hiding behind a screen, preying on people who were at their lowest point. But why? Why would someone do something like this? David Bryant had no idea what it was like to be lost, to feel like you couldn't go on. He didn't care about understanding. He got a rush from controlling people. It wasn't about saving anyone. It was about power, about being the one who could twist someone's mind into thinking there was no other way out. He wasn't just talking about his pain. He was planting seeds of doubt in my mind, convincing me that maybe the only way to end the darkness was to take that final step. But I wasn't the only one. He had done this to so many others. I later found out about Sarah, a 17-year-old girl from California who had spent hours in the same online chats with Ryan. Like me, Sarah had felt connected, seen, and understood. Like me, she thought she had found someone to guide her through her darkest moments. But for Sarah, Ryan's words were the last ones she heard before she ended it all. Her story shook me. It hit me hard, harder than anything I had ever felt. How many more people had fallen into his trap? How many others had trusted him? And then, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, the truth came out. It wasn't the police or any one official who stopped David Bryant. It was an old friend of Sarah's, someone who had refused to let Sarah's death be in vain. This friend found out about David's manipulation, pieced the clues together, and exposed him online. The world found out. The police were notified. David was arrested, but not before he left a trail of broken lives in his wake. He was convicted of multiple counts of online manipulation and harm. It wasn't enough nothing could be, but at least there was some justice. As for me, I'm still here, still trying to pick up the pieces. I don't know if I'll ever fully heal, but I can tell you this. It's been years, but I'll never forget the feeling of someone taking your pain and using it against you. It's something that stays with you. And now, every time I see someone online offering help, I remember the lesson. You can never be too careful. The people who truly care won't try to control you. They won't try to make you feel like you're alone. And they sure as hell won't convince you that there's no way out. I wish I had known that sooner. It's a cold, quiet night in 1999. A small town in Ohio is about to be shaken to its core. The disappearance of 14-year-old Sarah Cooper will forever leave a mark on the community, one that no one could have ever expected. Sarah was a bright, kind girl. She had a love for art and spent her free time sketching in her notebook by the window, looking out at the vast countryside. She lived with her parents, who were loving but often distracted, busy with their own lives. But Sarah never minded. She found peace in her own company, in the rhythm of her pencil on paper, and the way the world seemed to stand still when she was lost in her drawings. But on the evening of November 13th, something happened that would change everything. That night, Sarah's parents went out for dinner, leaving her at home, as they often did. It was a Friday, and Sarah was supposed to meet a friend at the local diner in the next town over. But when she didn't show up, her friend assumed she'd just forgotten. By the time Sarah's parents returned home around 10 p.m., the house was eerily quiet. Her art notebook was on the kitchen table, her shoes by the front door, but Sarah was nowhere to be found. At first, they thought maybe she had run off. Teenagers do strange things after all. But when the hours turned into days and no sign of Sarah appeared, panic set in. The small town that had once been peaceful and untouched by tragedy was suddenly gripped by fear. The authorities launched a search, but there were no signs of struggle, no clues to point to where Sarah could have gone. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The case went cold. Months turned into years. Sarah's name became another faded memory. But then, in 2003, something chilling happened. It was an ordinary Tuesday when Detective Mark Reynolds stumbled upon an old, overlooked tip while going through the case files. It was a voicemail left 2 days after Sarah disappeared. The message was from a man named Victor Wright, a local handyman who had been working in the area around the time of Sarah's disappearance. Victor was known for his strange behavior. He had a quiet, unassuming presence, often seen around town, fixing fences and doing odd jobs for people. But there was something unsettling about him. People said he was always watching, always lurking just a little too close. But it wasn't until Detective Reynolds listened to that voicemail that he realized how much darker things were. Victor's voice on the message was calm, almost too calm. "I saw her that night," he said. "She was walking alone down by the woods. She was upset. I think you should know what happened." But the message ended abruptly. There was no follow-up number, no explanation, just a cryptic warning. Reynolds had heard rumors about Victor before, but this voicemail raised alarms. He immediately launched an investigation into the handyman's whereabouts. What he uncovered would make even the most hardened detective shudder. It turns out, Victor had been living in a small, isolated cabin just on the outskirts of town, a place no one had paid much attention to. But when Reynolds visited the cabin, he found something that made his blood run cold. A stack of photographs. Some were old, others new. And at the center of nearly every one was Sarah Cooper. The photos were taken from behind bushes, through windows, and around corners. It was clear that Victor had been watching Sarah for months before she disappeared. There were even pictures of her, sitting at her kitchen table, alone in her room, walking to school. The images were haunting, like he had been documenting her every move. When Victor was confronted, he denied everything, claiming the photos were nothing more than random snapshots he had taken of the town. But the evidence was undeniable. The police found his fingerprints all over Sarah's art notebook, the very same one she had left on the kitchen table the night she vanished. Victor's behavior became even more disturbing when it was revealed that after Sarah disappeared, he had been in and out of local bars, talking openly about the girl he once saw, as if he were reliving the night she was gone. But there was something even more terrifying in the details that began to surface about Victor's past. It came to light that he had a history of obsessive behavior. In 1991, he had been involved in another case. A woman had gone missing, but there was never enough evidence to link him to it. Sarah's case had been his second, but this time he wasn't going to get away so easily. After weeks of digging, Detective Reynolds uncovered more chilling facts. A neighbor had witnessed Victor walking through the woods late at night, carrying something heavy. When asked what it was, he had smiled and said, "A project that needs burying." By 2004, Victor was finally arrested. The evidence was overwhelming. Sarah's body was discovered in a shallow grave near the woods, not far from where he had been seen lurking. She had been buried there for years, her life taken by someone who had been watching her from the shadows all along. Victor Wright was convicted of kidnapping and murder. His sentence? Life in prison with no chance of parole. But even after his conviction, the unsettling truth remained. For years, he had been hiding in plain sight, lurking in the background of the small town, listening to the whispers of his own dark secret, and watching as the world tried to solve a mystery that only he knew the answer to. The case of Sarah Cooper is a stark reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones who stand out. They're the ones who blend in, the ones who watch silently from the sidelines, waiting for their moment to strike. And even when we think the story is over, the truth can always come back to haunt us.